I drop my overnight bag on the kitchen floor of Grandpa Harold's ranch house. The thud echoes through the room, causing 4 heads to snap in my direction. My mother Tina, Uncle Dean, our family attorney Walter, and a stranger in an expensive suit all freeze like deer caught in headlights. "Elena," Mom says, recovering first with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "You're early." My hand trembles slightly as I take in the scene papers spread across the worn oak table where Grandpa and I used to eat breakfast after early morning painting sessions. The smell of his coffee still lingers in my memory, but today there's only the sharp scent of unfamiliar cologne. "The will reading isn't until tomorrow," Uncle Dean adds, shifting to block my view of the documents. "I know," I say, stepping further into the kitchen. "I wanted some time here alone before everything gets formal." The stranger clears his throat and extends his hand. "Franklin Moore. Pleasure to meet Harold's granddaughter. I've heard so much about you." His grip is firm, professional. I've never seen this man before in my life. "Elena, honey," Mom interjects, her voice unnaturally bright. "Mr. Moore is interested in purchasing the ranch. We've actually been discussing terms." The floor seems to tilt beneath me. Purchasing? But the will hasn't even been read yet. "We're just being proactive," Mom says, waving a dismissive hand. "The taxes and maintenance on this place would crush you, sweetheart. We're protecting you." "From what?" I ask, my voice suddenly small. "From my inheritance?" 6 months ago, Grandpa Harold sat in my Portland apartment, his weathered hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "The ranch is yours when I'm gone, Lena," he'd said, using the nickname only he called me. "It's all set up. The studio, the land, everything." I was 12 when my parents' divorce shattered our family. That summer, Grandpa taught me to paint in his rustic studio behind the main house. The smell of linseed oil and pine became my sanctuary as Mom and Dad fought over everything from custody to coffee mugs. Year after year, I returned to that studio. When Mom remarried and Dad moved across the country with his new wife, the ranch remained my constant. Grandpa understood me in ways my own parents never had. "We've already initiated the paperwork," Mom continues now, pulling me back to the present. "Mr. Moore is eager to close quickly." "You can't sell what isn't yours," I say, finding my voice. "Grandpa promised me the ranch. He told me he'd put it in his will." Mom's smile tightens. "Elena, your signature is already on the paperwork, honey." I stare at her, uncomprehending. "I never signed anything." The room goes silent. Uncle Dean exchanges a glance with the attorney. "You did," Mom insists. "Perhaps you don't remember. You've been under so much stress lately." My spine straightens as anger replaces shock. "I never signed anything," I repeat, each word deliberate and clear. Uncle Dean steps forward, placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. "You're being emotional right now, Elena. This is exactly why we're handling things for you. The ranch is a massive responsibility." "A responsibility I want," I say, shrugging off his hand. Mr. Moore clears his throat again. "Perhaps I should come back another time." "No need," Mom says quickly. "Elena just needs a moment to process. Why don't we continue in the living room?" They file past me, Uncle Dean patting my arm in that condescending way he's perfected over the years. The attorney doesn't even look at me as he gathers the papers. "Mr. Moore at least has the decency to appear uncomfortable. I stand alone in the kitchen, watching through the doorway as they continue their discussion without me. The sunlight streams through the window, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. Grandpa's ranch me sanctuary, my inheritance, my future being negotiated away while I'm treated like a child having a tantrum. My hands ball into fists at my sides. If they think I'll let them steal what's rightfully mine, they don't know me at all. And they're about to find out just how wrong they are. Next day, the morning sun burns hot against my neck as I pace the weathered porch boards. My third lap around the wraparound veranda when the courier's truck rumbles up the gravel drive. The sound pulls me from my thoughts, a welcome distraction from the endless loop of yesterday's confrontation. "Elena Bennett?" He balances a small package and electronic tablet. "Need your signature." I scrawl my actual signature, not whatever version appeared on those sale documents, and accept the padded envelope. The return address shows the name Rachel Dunn, attorney at law. Not Walter, our family lawyer, but someone I've never heard of. The courier's truck hasn't even disappeared around the bend when I tear open the envelope. Inside sits a folded note wrapped around a small bronze key. The metal feels cool and surprisingly heavy in my palm. "Elena, Your grandfather insisted I deliver this privately after his passing. He suspected someone was inventorying his collection without permission. This key opens his private study desk. Contact me immediately after receiving this. Rachel Dunn, ESQ. I sink onto the porch steps, hand pressed to my mouth. A physical reaction I can't control as pieces click into place: the hushed phone calls, Mother's sudden concern about Grandpa's mental state last year, Uncle Dean's unexpected visits to check on things. My phone is out before I realize what I'm doing, the number on Rachel's letterhead already half dialed when the screen door bangs open behind me. There you are. Mother's voice carries that artificial brightness that always signals trouble. We're waiting in the study. Time to discuss our options moving forward. I slip the key into my pocket, clutch the envelope, and follow her inside. The study smells like grandpa leather-bound books, pipe tobacco, and linseed oil. Uncle Dean stands by the window, hands clasped behind his back. Walter, our family attorney, arranges papers on the desk with careful precision. The space feels smaller with them in it, as if they're stealing the air along with everything else. I settle into Grandpa's chair, a deliberate choice that makes Walter's mouth tighten at the corners. The bronze key presses against my thigh, a secret ally. We've been discussing the most seamless approach, Mother begins, standing rather than sitting across from me. The power dynamic isn't subtle. To selling what isn't yours? The words come sharper than I intend. Uncle Dean turns from the window. Elena, there's no need for hostility. We're trying to help you avoid significant tax burdens. By forging my signature? The silence that follows hangs thick as paint fumes. Walter clears his throat. There was concern you might make an emotional rather than practical decision. You forged my signature. Not a question this time. Walter adjusts his glasses. I merely expedited paperwork that benefits everyone involved. It's standard practice, Mother adds, waving dismissively. We needed to move quickly. Mr. Moore had other properties to consider. Uncle Dean steps closer. We pushed to get a premium offer. I specifically mentioned the potential of hidden valuables to drive up his interest. Hidden valuables? The words catch in my throat. Something flickers across Mother's facey annoyance, perhaps fear. Dean, that's enough. But the damage is done. Grandpa's collection, the paintings, the sculptures, the pieces he'd acquired over decades of traveling, the collection he loved sharing with me during our painting sessions. You're selling his art. The realization lands like a physical blow. That's what this is really about. The ranch itself is barely worth the maintenance costs, Uncle Dean says. The collection, however, is mine. I grip the arms of Grandpa's chair. He taught me about every piece. The studio is where I learned to write, where I found my voice. Mother's expression hardens. If you interfere with this sale, I'll contest the will. I'll claim Harold wasn't of sound mind when he made you his primary beneficiary. You'd lie about your own father's mental state? The question hangs between us. I'd protect this family from your selfishness, she counters. You've always been dramatic, Elena, just like when you insisted on living with your father after the divorce. The old accusation still stings, but something's different now. I see the manipulation for what it is: a tactic, not a truth. I stand, the chair rolling back against the bookcase. Behind me, a leather-bound journal tumbles to the floor, falling open to a page marked with Grandpa's distinctive scrawl. May 15th missing. Rembrandt sketch. 2 Wyeth studies. Must speak with Rachel about inventory and security measures. Cannot trust. Mother snatches the journal before I can read more. But I've seen enough. The blood roaring in my ears drowns out whatever excuse she's offering. I step back, phone in hand. I need to make a call. Elena, don't be ridiculous. We're in the middle of an important discussion. Mother reaches for my arm, but I pull away. The porch feels like sanctuary as I dial Rachel Dunn's number with trembling fingers. She answers on the second ring, her voice steady and clear. Miss Bennett, I've been expecting your call. They forged my signature, I say without preamble. They're selling everything. I suspected as much. That's why your grandfather left a supplemental legal document with my office. No sale is valid without your explicit consent properly notarized in my presence. Relief washes over me, followed quickly by renewed determination. What should I do next? Document everything. I'll drive up tomorrow morning. The call ends, and I stand in the fading afternoon light, the bronze key heavy in my pocket. As night settles over the ranch, I find myself wondering what to do with this information. Should I confront my family immediately with what I've learned, or gather more evidence first? Exposing them too soon might alert them to destroy proof, but waiting might allow them to complete the fraudulent sale. What would you do when the people who should protect you become the ones you need protection from? Next day, the first call comes at 7 in the morning. Elena, honey, we're so worried about you. Aunt Patricia's voice drips with concern that feels slick as oil. Your mother told us you're having another episode about the ranch. My fingers tighten around the phone. Episode? Well, you know, like after college when you... She trails off delicately. We just want what's best. Your grandfather's passing has been hard on all of us. By noon, 3 more relatives have called with variations of the same message. Cousin Sarah mentions my obsession. Uncle Robert reminds me how expensive maintenance is for such a large property. Great Aunt Louise, who hasn't spoken to me in years, suddenly remembers my fragile condition. I stand at the kitchen window, watching clouds gather over the mountain ridge, the same view Grandpa Harold painted dozens of times. My mother's voice carries from the porch where she speaks on her cell phone. Yes, tomorrow morning at the Belmont Inn. Mr. Moore is willing to close quickly, thank goodness. A pause. Oh, you know, Elena. Making everything more difficult than it needs to be. The betrayal burns in my chest. Not just the lies, but the calculated way they're dismantling my character to anyone who might listen. That evening, I discover my name has been removed from the family accounts Grandpa established years ago. The bank manager looks uncomfortable when I present my ID. I'm sorry, Miss Bennett. According to our records, you were removed as a beneficiary 3 weeks ago. He slides a document across the desk. Your mother made the change as co-trustee. 3 weeks ago when Grandpa was already in hospice care. Back at the ranch, I check the mail. A letter from the insurance company states that coverage for Harold Bennett's art collection will expire next month, as requested by the policyholder's representative. Sleep evades me. I lie awake in my childhood bedroom, listening to the house creak. How many times has this happened before? How many small betrayals did I miss over the years, brushed aside as misunderstandings or my emotional nature? At 3 in the morning, I start methodically photographing documents with my phone, the property deed, Grandpa's handwritten notes about the art collection, the calendar showing when each painting was acquired. By dawn, I've downloaded a recording app and tested it in different rooms. My phone rings as the sun breaks over the mountains. An unknown number. Miss Bennett? Franklin Moore here. His voice is quiet, almost conspiratorial. I hope I'm not calling too early. No, I was awake. I wanted to speak with you privately about the ranch sale. A pause. The rushed nature of this transaction has been concerning me. Your grandfather was a man of integrity. I'd like to make sure his wishes are honored. The unexpected alliance lightens the weight on my shoulders, if only momentarily. Later that afternoon, I find my mother alone in Grandpa's studio. She stands before his last unfinished canvas, arms crossed tight against her chest. He never knew when to stop, she says without turning. Always one more painting, one more project. Sunlight streams through the skylight, illuminating dust particles between us. The familiar scent of linseed oil and pine turns sour in my nose. Why are you doing this? I ask. This place meant everything to him. She finally turns. Her face hardens in a way I recognize from childhood arguments. You've always been difficult, just like your grandfather. Some things are more important than sentimentality. Like what, Mom? Money? Or the fear of what happens when the IRS audit reveals what you've been hiding? Her face pales. What are you talking about? Grandpa kept records of everything, including which paintings are supposedly in storage but are actually hanging in private collections. I step closer. Did you think he wouldn't notice? You don't understand the financial realities. I understand betrayal perfectly well now. My voice grows stronger with each word. I'm not just fighting for a house or some land. I'm protecting Grandpa Harold's legacy from people who were supposed to honor it. Something flickers across her face, not guilt, but calculation. She leaves without another word, the studio door banging shut behind her. An hour later, my phone rings again. Rachel Dunn, Grandpa's private attorney. Elena, I've been reviewing Harold's supplemental documents. The situation with your family is concerning. I laugh hollowly. That's one word for it. I'd like to represent you in this matter, pro bono. Her voice softens. Harold would want his granddaughter protected. Unlike my family, Rachel listens without interruption as I explain everything I've discovered. She asks thoughtful questions instead of dismissing my concerns. When I mention Moore's call, she grows quiet. That could be very useful, she finally says. Elena, I don't want to alarm you, but the meeting tomorrow at the Belmonte's not just to discuss terms. They're planning to finalize the sale. I stand straighter, phone pressed to my ear. Can they do that without the will being read? Not legally, but if they've forged your signature once. We develop a plan over the next hour. Rachel will prepare legal documents while I set up recording equipment. The final piece falls into place when Moore agrees to ask specific questions about Grandpa's art collection. Are you ready for this? Rachel asks before we hang up. For the first time in days, my answer comes without hesitation. Yes. The next morning, I push through the polished doors of the Belmont Inn, heart pounding against my ribs. Through the restaurant's glass partition, I see them Mom, Uncle Dean, Walter, and Mr. Patience of Grester. Moore gathered around a table. Champagne glasses catch the light as they laugh together. They're celebrating already. They have no idea what's coming. I slip into the connecting hotel room at the Belmont Inn 40 minutes before the scheduled meeting. My hands move with surprising steadiness as I arrange the recording equipment Rachel provided. Each microphone needs precise positioning, one near the partially open connecting door, another secured beneath the decorative table in the main suite where my family waits. Testing 1, 2, I whisper, watching the audio levels rise and fall on the laptop screen. The green bars dance with my voice. Perfect. Through the crack in the door, I glimpse Uncle Dean pacing, phone pressed to his ear. His voice carries clearly through my headphones. We need to move those paintings before the audit. Harold's records are too damn meticulous. My pulse quickens. I adjust the gain slightly higher and sit back on my heels. The red recording light glows steadily, capturing every word as Dean continues his nervous pacing. Moore doesn't need to know about the Wyeth or the O'Keefe. I scribble the names in my notebook. Grandpa's collection included several valuable American painters, but he never mentioned these particular artists. Either Uncle Dean is lying, or these pieces were deliberately kept off the family inventory. The suite door opens, and Mr. Moore's voice joins the conversation. I position myself where I can see through the narrow opening without being spotted. Miss Bennett won't be joining us? Moore asks, accepting the scotch Uncle Dean offers. Elena is. Mom hesitates, searching for the right words. She's having a difficult time processing Harold's death. The girl has always been somewhat unstable. Obsessive about the property, Dean adds, swirling his drink. Harold indulged her artistic fantasies, but she's not equipped to handle real estate of this magnitude. Moore raises an eyebrow. Interesting. Harold spoke quite highly of her responsibility, said she was the only one who truly understood his vision for the ranch. Mom coughs, nearly choking on her drink. Well, that's Harold's sentimentality talking. The reality, Dean interrupts, is that the property taxes alone would bankrupt her. We're doing her a favor. Moore nods thoughtfully, then asks, what about the art collection Harold mentioned? He spoke of some significant pieces. Mom's voice shifts to a higher pitch. Nothing particularly valuable, just amateur Western landscapes mostly. Really? Moore leans forward. Harold mentioned a hidden collection worth over $2.7 million, said he'd been acquiring it quietly for decades. The silence that follows is deafening. Then Mom laughs nervously. Well, if such a collection exists, the IRS certainly doesn't know about it. As they openly discuss how they'd hidden the art from tax authorities, I wonder, was gathering enough evidence to have them prosecuted my goal, or should I focus solely on saving the ranch? Would justice for Grandpa Harold mean destroying what remained of my family? Rachel appears in the doorway behind me, moving silently across the carpet. She listens through the spare headphones, nodding as Dean elaborates on how they convinced a notary friend to backdate documents. She gives me a thumbs up, mouthing, admissible. I watch as Moore smoothly steers the conversation. So the signature on the sales agreement, Elena's signature, when was that obtained exactly? That's not important, Mom says quickly. Walter, our family attorney, clears his throat. For the record, Mr. Moore, all paperwork is legally binding. But the signature itself... Moore persists. Did Elena physically sign it? Dean glances at Mom before answering. Look, sometimes families make decisions together. Elena authorized us to act on her behalf. Did she, though? More presses. Because Harold seemed concerned about unauthorized signatures on recent documents. Mom's composure cracks. Her voice grows shrill. The IRS has no grounds for an audit. Those paintings were gifts, personal gifts. Jesus, Tina, Dean snaps. Can you not discuss that right now? He turns to Walter. This is exactly what I warned you about. You've mishandled this entire situation from the beginning. Me? Walter's face reddens. I told you forging her signature was risky, but you insisted. Quiet, Mom hisses, casting a nervous glance toward the connecting door where I hide. But it's too late. Rachel silently holds up her phone, showing me the recording app with its timer still running. The confession is captured. Every damning word. Moore watches my family argue with professional detachment, occasionally sipping his scotch. Only I notice how he subtly keeps provoking them with carefully placed questions. Perhaps we should postpone this discussion, Moore suggests mildly, until everyone relevant to the transaction can be present. Elena is irrelevant, Mom snaps, her veneer of maternal concern completely gone. The sooner we finalize this sale, the better. Dean turns on her. You're making things worse, as usual. If you hadn't rushed this, we wouldn't be in this mess. I lean back against the wall, removed from their sight but hearing every word. My family fractures before my ears, their greed exposed in the harsh light of their own confessions. Rachel squeezes my shoulder, a silent affirmation. We have what we need. The trap has sprung, and they walked right into it. The following day, we gathered to finalize the deal. 20% of the sale proceeds. Uncle Dean slides a document across the table toward me. You sign today, we all walk away happy. The conference room at the Belmont Inn feels too small, too warm. My mother's perfume mixes with Uncle Dean's cologne, creating a suffocating cloud. Walter, our family attorney, stands near the window, sweat beading on his forehead despite the room's air conditioning. Mr. Moore sits quietly in the corner, observing. Consider it a generous offer, Mom says, her smile brittle as she taps her manicured nails against the mahogany table. The taxes alone would bankrupt you within a year. I stare at the document, its legal language blurring before my eyes. 20% of what you're stealing from me. Elena, Uncle Dean's foot taps rapidly beneath the table. Be reasonable. You've always been emotional about that old place, just like Harold. Mom leans forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Sweetheart, if this becomes contentious, certain things might come to light. Your difficulties after college. The therapy sessions. The medication. Her eyes narrow slightly. Prospective employers might find that concerning. The threat lands like a physical blow. They would use my past against me. The depression I battled after my fiancé's betrayal 3 years ago. We're trying to protect you, Walter adds, not meeting my eyes. I let their words hang in the air, giving them just enough rope. My hand slides to my jacket pocket, feeling the reassuring shape of my phone. Is that what this is? Protection? I ask, my voice steadier than I feel. Mom nods eagerly. Exactly. This property is a burden you don't need. And the art collection? The one worth $2.7 million that you've been hiding from the IRS? I watch their faces carefully. Is hiding that also for my protection? The color drains from Uncle Dean's face. Walter fumbles with his pen, dropping it on the carpet. I don't know what you're talking about, Mom says, but her voice wavers. I remove my phone, placing it on the table. I have the entire conversation from yesterday. Every word about the forged signature. The plans to move the artwork before any audit. The tax evasion. The door opens behind me. Rachel Dunn enters, carrying a leather portfolio. Her heels click authoritatively on the hardwood floor as she approaches. Miss Dunn, Walter stammers, this is a private family meeting. Rachel places the portfolio on the table. I'm here as Elena's attorney. She removes a document bearing my grandfather's familiar signature. This is Harold Bennett's supplemental will directive, stipulating that the ranch property cannot be sold without Elena's written consent. Not a power of attorney, not a signature by proxy. Her direct, notarized consent. Mom's face contorts. That can't be legal. It is entirely legal. Rachel responds, sliding the document toward Walter. As you'd know if you'd bothered to request Harold's complete legal file, rather than assuming you knew everything. I lean forward, finding strength in Rachel's presence. Grandpa knew someone was betraying him. He just didn't know it was his own family. Uncle Dean slams his fist on the table. This is ridiculous. Harold was losing his mind toward the end. Mr. Moore clears his throat. Actually, I found Harold quite lucid during our conversations. He spoke very highly of his granddaughter's integrity. 2 hours later, we stand in Grandpa's studio behind the ranch house. The afternoon sun streams through the skylights, illuminating dust particles floating above easels and paint-splattered workbenches. A police officer examines the false wall my family had constructed to hide Grandpa's most valuable paintings. I approach the officer, Harold's bronze key clutched in my hand. There's something else. I kneel before the old fireplace, feeling along the stones until I find the loose one. Behind it sits a small metal lockbox. The key fits perfectly. Inside lies a leather-bound journal and a stack of documents in clear protective sleeves. What is this? The officer asks, kneeling beside me. Proof. I say, handing him the papers. Grandpa documented everything. Provenance certificates, purchase receipts, insurance valuations, even photographs of each piece with dates. Mom sinks onto a paint-stained stool, her shoulders slumping. The business is failing, she whispers. We needed money. Dad never understood. He understood perfectly. I interrupt, rising to my feet. That's why he protected his collection from you. Mr. Moore examines one of the documents. According to these records, Harold legally purchased every piece in this collection. The tax payments are all documented. He looks pointedly at Uncle Dean. Contrary to what I was told about questionable provenance. The officer turns to me, not my mother or uncle. Miss Bennett, would you like to press charges for the forgery and attempted fraud? The question hangs in the air. My family watches me, fear evident in their eyes. I need time to consider my options, I say finally. Later, as the police finish cataloging the collection, Rachel approaches with a concerned expression. You should know the IRS agent I spoke with mentioned they're expanding their investigation to include Bennett family investments. I nod slowly. The family business, the one that funded our comfortable lifestyle, paid for my college education, and apparently now teetered on the brink of collapse. What about Nathan? I ask, thinking of my 19-year-old cousin who admitted to helping forge my signature under pressure from his father, my uncle. He's cooperating, Rachel says. His testimony will be valuable. The house falls quiet as everyone leaves. In the fading light, I return to the studio, drawn to the lockbox. Beneath the documents lies an envelope with my name written in Grandpa's shaky hand. The notation below reads, "To be opened only in case of family betrayal." I trace my finger over his handwriting, wondering what final message awaits me and whether I'm ready to read it. Sunlight streams through the skylights I installed last month, bathing the studio in golden warmth as I arrange a series of watercolors along the gallery's west wall. Grandpa Harold's landscapes mingle with works from 3 local artists, their styles complementary yet distinct. What was once his private sanctuary has transformed into the community space he always secretly wanted. Miss Bennett? A woman with silver-streaked hair approaches, portfolio clutched to her chest. I'm Vivian Porter. Your call about featuring emerging Montana artists caught my attention. Please, it's Elena. I extend my hand, noticing how steady it remains. 6 months ago, my fingers would tremble whenever someone approached me about the ranch. Now, I stand firmly on floorboards that belong unquestionably to me. I'd love to see your work. As Vivian opens her portfolio, I make decisions without second-guessing myself, without wondering what Mom would say or if Uncle Dean would approve. Their opinions dissolved into irrelevance the moment the judge ruled in my favor, ordering restitution for the attempted fraud. We have space in the summer exhibition, I tell Vivian, selecting 3 pieces that would complement Grandpa's technique. Harold believed art thrives in conversation with other voices. The gallery opening transforms the very kitchen where I once found my family conspiring. Caterers arrange appetizers on the table where legal papers once spread like a trap. The old oak surface gleams, refinished by my own hands during winter evenings when the Montana snow piled high against the windows. Art is meant to be shared, I announce to the gathered crowd, echoing Grandpa's favorite phrase. The words no longer feel borrowed, they've become mine through action, through the creation of this space. I speak confidently about Harold's vision for accessible art, about the scholarship program for rural students, about the rotating exhibitions featuring unknown talents alongside established names. Not once do I falter or defend my right to be here. Not once does that old doubt creep into my voice. After the formal proceedings, a smaller gathering remains the people who stood beside me when family didn't. Rachel raises her glass, her attorney's precision momentarily softened by genuine pride. To Harold, she says, and to promises kept. Franklin Moore, who ultimately withdrew his offer to purchase the ranch and instead became our first financial supporter, nods appreciatively. Beside him stands my cousin Nathan, who testified against his father-me Uncle Dan despite the personal cost. To legacies, Nathan adds quietly, and to doing right even when it hurts. The next morning, I welcome a dozen children into the studio for our first weekend workshop. Their eager faces remind me of myself at 12, discovering the magic of creating something from nothing. Miss Elena, is this right? A small boy holds up a landscape bleeding with colors Grandpa would have loved. There's no right in art, I tell him. Only what's true to you. Later, after the children leave with paint-splattered clothes and beaming faces, I carefully place Grandpa's journal in the custom display case. The leather-bound book opens to his final entry, the page protected behind museum-quality glass. Art is meant to be shared. Justice is the frame that lets it see light. Beside it, I place a brochure fresh from the printer, the Harold Bennett Creative Retreat where artists find their voice. My memoir manuscript waits on my laptop, nearly complete. As I hang Grandpa's last painting in the gallery that evening, I wonder if protecting his legacy meant forever closing the door on those who betrayed it, or if there could ever be room for redemption and healing. What would you do if family betrayed your trust but later sought forgiveness?